I think like education and entrepreneurship go hand in hand, because part of as an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is what's the known knowns, what's the known unknowns, like how do I figure this out?
Hey guys, welcome to the BloomX episodes of 2020. Got a great lineup set up for you guys. As you notice, we got a new location now. We're filming out of Huddle Share Space. It's a new co-working space out of Scarborough. We're operating out of here as well. But of course, we got to give out a main shout out to MCRO, who continues to be a mainline sponsor for the show and for everything that we do. So remember, guys, if you're looking for any apps to make any apps, create any software, definitely consider them in your process. They do a great job. They support us, and they can definitely support you. Happy 2020, guys. All right, and we're on.
There you go.
Nafis, man, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
So you're from Legal Innovation Zone, part of DMZ at Ryerson. Yeah, it's an incubator. It's pretty new, relatively new, focused on legal tech.
Yeah.
Right, so that's going to be interesting because we've had Sean Bernstein from
Minutebox.
What's that?
Minutebox.
Man, I almost forgot that for a minute. He came on and talked about that, and it was interesting to get like a lawyer's perspective on entrepreneurship.
Right.
Right. So, like a very like professional industry background. You know, you think of lawyers, you think of being like very narrow by the book. All this having to navigate a world of entrepreneurship. That seems like a wide kind of knowledge gap to fulfill, right? Like you're going into a very uncomfortable setting.
Yeah.
Right, I would imagine. But I was talking to him like, no, this guy's just an entrepreneur. He just has a legal background. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in seeing your perspective, right, on legal innovation, so on working behind the scenes with these kind of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right, how it looks like. So before we get into that, like, you know, let's talk a little about yourself. Who is Nafis, man?
Wow, damn, this is a real interview question. Mm-hmm. Who's Nafis? Honestly, I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I was just telling Henry earlier, when I was a kid, I used to go around, take bikes and repair them with my friend and sell it for, you know, a margin on top. Yeah. So I've always had that in me, and, you know, I always thought, you know, I was going to go to university, graduate from there, get a corporate job, get some money, and then eventually go into my own entrepreneurial, chase my own entrepreneurial dreams. Mm-hmm. Just so happened that while I was at university, I got exposed to the mammoth ecosystem that Toronto's building in terms of tech startups. So yep. Entrepreneur at heart and just kind of chasing that dream, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned before the show, like you joined DMZ, yeah. Right? As a student?
Yeah.
Right. It was a summer job. What would it look like?
Yeah. So I was studying business and technology at Ryerson. And Ryerson has these opportunities for students to join some of the programs there. So DMZ hires a bunch of students every year. I guess I got lucky. I joined the DMZ as a student, as doing operations for a while. Did that for about a year, and then the Legal Innovation Zone started. So that's kind of how I ended up jumping up into the crazy world of legal tech.
Yeah. So you started working out there as a student, and pretty much, did you see the Legal Innovation Zone open? Like, when did it get started?
Yeah,
because I know it's pretty new.
So a bit of a context into Ryerson's ecosystem. Yeah. So DMZ is really the first of the batch. They started out almost about 10 years ago. Initially started as a space for Ryerson students to explore their entrepreneurial projects, and then it just grew. Now they're at like the number one university business incubator in the world. They have an accelerator program. They're massive. But, you know, out of the success of the DMZ, Ryerson saw the opportunity to help all these other different zones that are sector specific to help build out more entrepreneurs. So the Legal Innovation Zone got started just about 5 years ago. At that time, I was still at the DMZ, but I was there their launch day, helping out with with the setup of their TV and all that stuff. And the Liz got started in a very interesting manner. So the co-founders of Liz, Hirsch Perlis and Chris Bentley. So Chris Bentley is...
So Liz is Legal Innovation Zone.
Legal Innovation Zone, yeah. Okay. So we always use an acronym, right?
Yeah.
You're not a startup if you don't use an acronym.
Of course. Liz is a good one too. It makes it sound friendly and...
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes I get emails like, hey, Liz. Liz is not a person, but yeah, we'll take it. So, I mean, coming back to the story, Chris Bentley, He's the former Attorney General of Ontario. Gave up politics, came to Ryerson, started developing a program called Law Practice Program. It's an alternative for law students to article. While he was doing that, he saw all the amazing stuff that was going on at the DMZ, but realized that not any of these companies were really doing anything for the legal industry to service the legal industry. So I had the crazy idea to get it started. Went to Ryerson's president at the time. Sheldon said, "Sure, go build it. I have no idea what you're building, but go do it."
Okay.
So got Chris got Hirsch on board, and really when we started out, we really were the world's first incubator that was dedicated to supporting legal tech startups.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, when we talked to Sean about it, he was saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He started an entrepreneur journey into legal technology, and it happened to be in a city where this is the first kind of offering, right? How to navigate that kind of center. So why the need for a specialized center for legal tech?
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, every other industry that we know has changed and has evolved over the years. Except there's a few, but legal is one of those core pillars of the society. Everyone needs access to better legal services, except the legal world really has not changed much, right? Have you ever used a lawyer?
Yeah.
And how did you feel about having to call a lawyer and having to go through that process?
I mean, I think the hardest problem was figuring out the right lawyer and figuring out what to even ask them. Because the biggest problem is you don't know that industry at all. You don't know what to look for.
Right.
How do you qualify if someone's the right person to serve you if you don't know them? But
and now let me compare that. How do you feel about going to the bank or using a bank app?
I mean, super comfortable because I use that.
Comes just like that, right? So why is it that we could, banking is a pretty complex industry, but why is it that it's become so easy for the consumer to grab a hold of versus legal, which is one of the core pillars of our society, is still very far out of their reach, right? So one of our core things was, how do we drive innovation in the sector? And on top of that, how do we really create a focus on the consumer? Now, we have a unique approach to this. When we say consumer, it really could be regular folks like you and I. It could be big Fortune 500 companies that have small legal teams, have lots of legal tasks, complex legal tasks, and even they can't afford some of the legal bills that they get put in front of them, right? So our whole mandate is to push the legal industry into the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the first things I realized when I was raising capital for another company and trying to secure myself was one, the cost that goes into legal and the necessity of the work. Yeah. But man, it's such a deep cost if you don't know what you're looking for and who to go for and how to qualify. But one of the things I learned from that, I was talking to lawyers, and it's the average cost to defend a lawsuit, especially for a business, right, is about $30,000. Yeah. Average. Yeah. Right. You could easily spend $200,000 defending yourself.
Easily.
And there's another completely different realm of talk that I heard from somebody else, but the idea is the fact that most people are especially small businesses, are so close to going out of business. Their margins are so slim that any kind of legal disruption that happens to them, right, if they're not prepared for, they're screwed. It's going to wipe them out.
Absolutely.
And the idea of forethought into that, right? Now it's because there's more resourcing available. Yeah. You can go online, on YouTube, learn more about business. You can get all this information and really clear out your doubts and your unknown unknowns, right? The fact that what you don't even know that you don't even know. Right. It's easier to search now and all that. So it's become when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a founder, when you're part of the exec team, your job is to defend your idea, your IP, your company, and all this. But I guess the navigation of that is so difficult. So your focus is more about, do you guys have a mandate on legal technologies you work with? Is it meant for a certain moral compass, helping entrepreneurs? What exactly is the unique value you provide for Legal Innovation Zone?
Yeah, so we actually have 3 core pillars as well in terms of what we focus on. So one is that incubator. So we at any point will have 15 to 18 different companies that are building technology-based solutions to serve consumers of the law, whether again it's the big businesses, law firms, or regular consumers like you and I. So I could come back to that because there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
The second aspect that we focus on is helping organizations, public, private, and governments to fulfill their innovation agendas. So we've done a number of work with some of the law firms here. We've worked with the Ontario Ministry on a few successful startup challenges to help startups push that drive. I just went to Ukraine a couple months ago, and we worked with Legal Aid in Ukraine and 4 other countries there to help them go through a design sprint and understand how they could bring innovation as a mindset into the way that they're operating. So that's been our second stream, just kind of really pushing that agenda of innovation. And then thirdly, we've really focused on how do we really build that 21st century justice system. So, it's kind of where we play in the sandbox and bring different people together, start talking about some of the ways that the legal system currently isn't speaking to the consumer, and hopefully drive new approaches to it. So one thing that we've actually pushed out recently is a information portal. It's called familylawportal.com. But if you know anyone that's gone through the separation process, not only does it take a huge toll mentally and everything else, the legal cost of that is insane, right? Many people are actually not even pursuing or hiring a lawyer to help them go through one of the most complex, arduous process of your life. So we built out a portal that helps people kind of understand where they are and make a more informed decision as they push forward. So that's like the three pillars that we.
You guys built this as Legal Innovation Zone, like
yeah. So 4 or so years ago,
okay.
As one of our focus when we started out was having this conversation, and we over a series of different events we brought together different stakeholders, and we really tried to unpack like what's working, what's not working, what's the current process, and what's the art of the possible, right? We built out a report on that, and then recently we got some funding to actually build out the information portal based on our findings.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like, can we bring it up, or is there something that's...
Yeah, so if you go to familylawportal.com.
Yeah. Dale, could we bring that up? Family Law Portal?
I should have told Dale before, right?
Yeah, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah, so if you go to familylawportal.com.
Yeah. Sorry, this is a page for Legal Innovation Zone?
This is our main page, yeah.
Yeah.
Family Law Portal. There you go, first one. Yeah. So, we really try to bring together the user experience into this. It's a series of questionnaire, right? You go through this, and basically what it tells you is, when it comes to children, where are you right now? When it comes to your financials, what are things that you need to bring on the table, and what should you consider, right? So again, this is not we're not substituting the lawyer. All this is meant to do is you have zero idea what you're doing here. You're a regular consumer. You never in your life expected to get divorced, right? So how can you at least collect some of the information and be at a better mindset so that you can move forward with this process?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So Legal Innovation Zone builds this portal out, right, to share this kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
Could have a knowledge share kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
But how did that feed into yourself as an incubator?
Yeah. So coming back to it, one of the best ways to drive innovation that we think is empowering others. Yeah. So as an incubator, that is our goal, is to empower other tech startups, other entrepreneurs like Sean Bernstein, that they just looked at it and they're like, what? There's got to be a better way. There's got to be something new and different. And they took that plunge. It's always that plunge, right? The entrepreneur's plunge. They're like, I'm going to go and do it. I have no idea if I'll be successful or not. I'm going to go and do it. So when it came to legal, there really isn't anything out there to support these entrepreneurs. The legal landscape and the industry itself is a pretty different cycle for entrepreneurs compared to some of the others, right? So that's where we came in. We put in that unique touch of how do you, as a legal tech entrepreneur, navigate this world? You still have the same struggles as other entrepreneurs, but there are different layers that get added.
So how do you qualify like a legal tech company? Like, what defines you as a legal tech company? You know, do they have to be a lawyer to be a legal tech founder? Like what are the qualifications?
You don't have to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Frankly, what we're looking for is a validated idea. Is the problem a real problem, right? And as a solution, are you really bringing something unique and different? I don't want you to bring me a blue car painted red and call it new and different, right? Is it really changing the way that this problem is currently being solved? And the other aspect of it is we care a lot about our community. So we are looking for founders that can add to the community, that are driven, that will push for their company, because I could say all I want, but you as an entrepreneur have to pursue it, right? You have to action this out. So can you do it as an entrepreneur? And will you also give back to the community? Because that's like one of the most crucial part about our incubator. If you have an amazing idea, but you're a terrible entrepreneur, like you're a bad seed, I don't want you spreading that in my community, right? So those are some of the qualifying factors. We take companies at slightly earlier stage, so they go from product development, early product development, up to market readiness. But in fact,
so they graduate when they launch their product.
Yeah, so we guide them through that entire process, because every company is at a different stage. We do more of a bespoke service with them, right? So whether you're at a stage, your sales and marketing, that's like your core focus, we will work with them differently versus someone that's 6 months earlier and you're developing out your product. Well, there's a different way that we will work with you at that stage, right? But the goal is to get them out there into the market, or you've gone through this and you either need to pivot or you need to stop. Because not every idea will make it out, right? Perfect. So I'd rather work with you and accelerate that process and really give you the feedback that you need to make those decisions.
Absolutely. So what about your particular role? Like, what's your role in this process? What do you do?
It's interesting. I can never really.
You kind of just jumping.
Wear a bunch of different hats.
Yeah. So it's almost like a startup amongst itself. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I always say it. I used to joke like we're a startup for startups. Yeah. So initially started out as doing a lot of the operational stuff. So got the zone started on that. And then really started working with the startups, and that's where I found my love. Being able to work with these different founders and help them navigate this process. And really do the troubleshoot, the problem solving, it just brings me joy. So a lot of my work is also focused on building up programs for our companies, connecting them with the community, our mentors, and really supporting one-on-one the founders.
Cool. Yeah. So what do you feel about your personal journey? Like, I mean, did you ever find yourself like thinking like, how do I end up here? Like, like
every day.
Yeah. Because the way you seem like, you as a student, you came across this cool opportunity to be part of an incubator, and you got pulled into that kind of world, right? Like, did you know about this whole kind of incubation process before, like incubators in general, startups? Like, what was your knowledge base beforehand?
Zero idea. Yeah. I like to consider myself a student of like the business world. Yeah. So I've always been really into business. As I was saying, like I was entrepreneurial, just never really called myself an entrepreneur, right? So it's figuring out different ways to make money and get through it. When I started working at the DMZ, that's when it just changed, right? Yeah. I looked at the world around me, I was like, this is insane. You have 80 different companies in the space, like all entrepreneurs, everyone's like-minded, they're trying to do something new and different, and they're taking these risks. How are you doing this? Yeah. Right? And the more I got into it, the deeper I got into it, the more I fell in love with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, can you share that a little bit more? Like, what do you love about it? Like, what do you get to do? Is it meeting new people, meeting these founders, these companies?
Yeah, like
working these projects. Like,
what I love is the connection that you can make with another person that's trying to do something absolutely crazy, right? Like I say absolutely crazy, it's more common now, right? But like, think about it. You're gonna give up your life and savings and steady income to pursue a startup.
Yeah.
That sounds insane to all of our parents. And I think we both come from immigrant parents. Like, when you first went and told your parents that you're going to be an entrepreneur, what was their response?
They're like, what do you mean? What are you doing? This is not why we came to this country for.
Yeah. Lawyer, doctor, engineer.
Of course.
What happened, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Which one did they want you to be?
All three.
All three. They're like, pick one, or
depending who you're talking to. But they were also very supportive of me, right? And I'm sure they were of you. But that's what I love about it. Like, I could be that sounding board to someone. I could be that sense of support to someone, and help them. Whatever it is. Like, if today your problem is I need to deal with a team member and get them up to speed with what we're doing, or like I need to raise funding and I have 2 weeks of runway left, right? Just working with that individual and helping them navigate this process keeps me on edge, and I would never give anything up for that.
Absolutely. Like, now that you've seen how like innovation works and all this stuff, like, would you start your own startup, like in any industry? Like, you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's some ideas that I'm brewing up. Something that I've started doing is consulting. So I was trained in design thinking. So I work a lot on building out different kind of programming and workshops around that. I do a lot of it for free, actually. Just my buddy calls me up, hey, this is what I'm working on. I get my Post-its and whiteboard ready, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna spend the next 3 hours working on this. So I've started working on that. The other thing that I'm exploring right now is how do you empower individuals to actually solve these complex problems, but do it in a more structured manner.
Okay.
So how can you as an entrepreneur with zero knowledge get access to all this different knowledge, right? And how can you really get the right level of guidance at different stages of your journey?
Yeah.
So this is something that I'm just playing with in my head right now. I'm like, if you look at my whiteboard, it will look crazy. But I think eventually that's the area that I'm leaning towards, like figuring out how can you build a platform that everyone can see, and be able to use to help them. And it's like empowerment at its core.
Yeah. So what does empowerment look like to you? Like, what does that mean? Like, abilities, access to opportunity,
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? If you look at minority individuals, empowerment looks very different to someone that maybe has access to a lot more just because of where they went to school or how they grew up and whatnot, right? So to me, empowerment is this individual, can they look within themselves and say, yes, I can do this, and these are the tools that I have to do this, or this is how I obtain these tools, right? So empowerment to me starts really from the core of the person, and can you help them first tick off that yes, I can do this, right? The second stage of empowerment is, do you have the resources available to you, right? So that is very crucial, because even though this person may be very driven and want to pursue it, if they don't have the right level of resources, if it's not a level playing field for them, it becomes a very different journey, right?
Yeah.
So that second stage of empowerment to me is, can you make a level playing field for everyone, have the right level of resources available so that they could pursue it.
Amazing, man. Like, one of the things like I really appreciate like of where you are at right now is because, I mean, you grew up in Scarborough. I grew up in Scarborough. Most of us did as well. Yeah. We're right now filming out of Scarborough.
Yeah.
Right. Like, one of the things that really galvanizes me is the fact that how underserved as a community Scarborough was for the longest time. Now it's like kind of catching up.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of negative kind of stereotype still kind of pervades the area.
Yeah.
Right. Like, one of the reasons we love Huddle Share Space, where we're at right now filming. By the way, this is our new film spot. Right, we just moved out.
It's an awesome spot. Check it out.
Thank you. Right, is the fact that it's in Scarborough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the area is gentrifying. There's more resourcing coming up. But growing up, like, you're from Scarborough, you grew up here for a while, right? Is that there wasn't much resourcing available, and resourcing in the sense that is not just access to things or programs and things like that, but you never got to see like role models or people who are doing cool things.
Yeah.
like, you know, everyone you seem to meet were like other immigrants who were trying to just figure things out.
Yeah.
But you know, you go on TV and you talk about, you know, even like doctors, lawyers, or like, you know, like investment professionals and all this stuff. Like they seem like the other, right? This hidden other that like somehow they get to that kind of where they're at now. Like one of the biggest things I had growing up was like, you know, navigating, understanding what university would look like.
Yeah.
Because nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't unless your older cousin or someone you knew went to university, or someone you grew up with who went to university, and you could get that feedback from them directly.
Right.
You kind of understood what the experience was.
Yeah.
But now with technology, really, you know, you can go on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, start following people that, you know, whose stories inspire you.
Yeah.
Like, how can I do what you're doing? How can I learn from this? Right? Learning is becomes so libertized. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and like one of the things I really enjoy is like how much information is out there, so freely available. Right? Like now almost all my dead time, like when I'm driving or just like doing something on the side, like I'm always listening to podcasts, I'm listening to like YouTube, because the wealth of information that's out there. Right? But one of the things like I feel that this generation is so blessed with, it's growing up with that. Like, have you ever seen those like YouTube clips where like there'd be like a 2-year-old talking to Alexa?
Yeah.
And go up and like just randomly like they'd be playing and like look up and like, Alexa, why is the sky blue?
Yeah.
Just have a random curiosity.
Yeah.
And it'll get an actual answer.
Yeah.
Whereas for the most of human history, a kid like that will mostly be told like, you know, like, shut up, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Right? Mom, dad's busy, whatever, right? But you get that kind of information back flow, right? One of the things I'm really interested in is how that's changing us as a culture, right? Now that information is becoming more and more available. And we see this now with a lot of universities, right? Universities' entire business model used to be these garden walls, right? Like walled gardens, where it's like, oh, look, we create all this research, we create all this wealth, we're an institution of knowledge. Here's the wall, pay us to get in. You get in, we give this paper that validates everything that we have built, this entire brand of the knowledge leader gets transferred to you, right? That's what a degree was meant to be, right?
Yeah.
You're like, it's a pay-for-play kind of interaction.
Yeah.
But now, like it used to be like, you know, if you can't afford it, you're not going to get it. Or if you aren't smart enough to get the scholarship, you won't get it. But now universities are putting up their entire lecture series on YouTube, right? Like Virginia Law School, like I was blown away by this, has most of their law program on YouTube. And so now the university is actually talking about this, but in the institution, right? Now that like you can't, because of technology, you can't put up these walled gardens anymore, putting up paywalls, right? What does that look like for the knowledge share, right? But I'm also interested in how that's changing culture in general. When knowledge becomes so open and free, right? Like anyone can learn anything and move into different kind of paths very easily, right? What does that do for people, right? Like, I mean, especially if you're a hustler growing up, right? And you're like, okay, I want to do this, or I don't know what's going on, but my situation's so bad, I want to get out. Now you have access to that. Yeah. Right. Like one of the coolest things, like one of the things I'm so proud of, like one of my younger cousins, he's 20. When he was in high school, went on YouTube, started asking around, learned how to cut hair. Started his own barbershop. Right. Used Instagram, started his own like channel. Right. Started filming taking videos of his cutting hairs of his boys. Right. Just his friends, classmates, and then grew a marketing channel, and grew his business out of it. Right. And like how technology has changed that kind of interaction for entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. Learning new skills and applying those new skills and generating an audience is much more open, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like,
yeah, I mean, I would say right now is probably the best time for any entrepreneur to pursue their goals, right? There's the knowledge, there are hubs like these incubators, right? You can access like information from anywhere in the world right now that helps you make better decisions, right? So I mean, it's an interesting thing that you bring up, right? I think it has the potential to help these individuals that are, you know, maybe minorities or underprivileged, to look at the world around you and be like, I could do more, right? If I put the right effort behind that. I think there's a balance of the knowledge, but also a support system. That's where community is so important. You're often influenced by the community that you're around, and if you surround yourself with entrepreneurs, you're going to constantly be like, how do I become better? How do I do more?
Yeah.
The conversations that you're going to have is going to be different,
Yeah.
right? So knowledge isn't just what you're reading online, it's what you're also applying and what you're building into your approach of life, right? So I think there's a balanced approach to it. What I'm more curious about actually is how do we not just make knowledge more available, but how do we dispel this in a way that really becomes
applicable.
Yeah. It's easy for you to collect and apply, right? And it's easy for you to do this with everyone else around you. So I think it's like a Venn diagram.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like, I mean, one of the best ways to change yourself is to change who you're around.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like a diffusion effect.
Yeah.
Right. Like what people are thinking about, their thoughts become your thoughts. The way they're acting, the way that what they're doing becomes part of you. And I mean, a lot of people, I mean, have trouble with this, right? Like, I mean, part of growing up is actually letting go of the friend circle you hang out with and changing that. And a lot of people times it changes naturally. Yeah. But for a lot of people, like growing up, I mean, it's part of your identity. It's hard to get out of, right? Yeah. People from Scarborough has this huge problem, right? I saw this too from a lot of people who can't get out of that same kind of collective mind state they get into when they're younger, and they get dragged down by it until they're forced to learn and forced to adapt. And I think like the liberalization of this knowledge, it makes it easier for those who want to, right? From your phone, from your bed, you can consume all this information that just makes things frictionless. And I'm sure you listen to some podcasts too. Like, do you listen to Joe Rogan?
Absolutely.
Right. One of the things Joe Rogan said like really got to me. Right. He's like, the power that's behind YouTube and all these huge platforms. Yeah. Like Twitter, Facebook, all of them. Right. It's like the reinvention. Like each of these giant platforms, like it's like a reinvention of like the Gutenberg printing press. Right. Like what the printing press did for writing. Right. YouTube is almost done for the transfer of the spoken word. Yeah. Right. Like now everything we're speaking about, like talking in full visual acuity, right, is uploaded. So not just the actual voice, but like how you're saying it, the body language, all this information is now codified, captured into video format that can be reshared. Right. Just like a book can be reshared. Right. And it can be done now by everybody. So that's changed that. Like. Our previous guest, Mohammed, right, who came from Paramount Food, he talked about that. Like 30 years ago, there's no way like someone like me or like us could get access to like broadcast equipment like this. Right. Right. Like you have these paywalls, you have to get a broadcaster license, you had to get access to the TV channel or like a radio channel. All these barriers to entry. Right. For us, like how quickly was it for us to order the stuff off Amazon? Right. You know, get some equipment together. And boom, we have, we started a YouTube channel, started a LinkedIn page, right? Like the frictionless environment we live in to transfer that knowledge has gone down so much. And that's changing culture. Yeah. Right. So I think like that cultural shift, I think is we're seeing the emergence of. Right. Right. It's interesting to see.
So there's an interesting point to that. I actually had this conversation with my boss and one of my colleagues recently. There's also this balance though, right? With YouTube and social media and stuff, there's so much information out there. People are exposed to a lot, right? But one thing that I'm really interested in is mental health, right? There's this balance of like, you're seeing people do these cool things and whatnot, but then how are you internalizing it? And are you at a good spot to be able to internalize it, right? Because the information that you're gathering at this point, it may be really crucial information for you, but are you at a spot where you could actually use this to empower yourself and to actually do more, right? Do something with that information, right? Because often, when the conversation around social media and mental health comes in, you're exposed to so much. Everyone's living a perfect life, right? When in reality, we know it's not always perfect, right? So how do you create that balance? How do you build those checks into place so that you don't feel crappy that you're not out there at this Jay-Z concert? Right? Or you're not out there meeting the Toronto Maple Leafs. Right? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like this is not a concern for me as much anymore because now I utilize like when you become like a producer of content. Yeah, I think your interaction with social media changes. Yeah, and now I talk to everybody. I'm like, create content consciously.
Right.
Not just upload your day-to-day life and like, document yourself, but actually do it with a purpose.
Right.
Because it changes the interaction. Because before we started creating content and like, you're looking into your channel as like almost like an opportunity seeker, opportunity, right? I was consumed by this. What am I doing versus what my friend's doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing versus like, this person's doing? You start comparing people within your career, people you grew up with, people in your graduating class, right? Like, you look at that, and I think that's a great problem to focus on. I think the solution is to turn people into consciously utilizing the technology.
Right.
Right. So instead of, I don't think the solution is disconnecting. People look at it as like, oh, we need to disconnect.
Right.
We need to, utilize the real world. Well, what's the real world? Right. Like if you look at how technology and humanity is interacting, right? Like technology is what makes us human. If it wasn't for when fire got invented, it changed us. We lost the ability to eat uncooked meat, right? It made us more nutrient rich, and our diet's more nutrient rich. It changed us, right? Where like if you look at those old pictures from the 60s, people in the subway, right? They're all reading the newspaper.
They were all reading the newspaper,
right? Ignoring each other, and you look at it, it's like the technology just brings out what's human in us, our nature, and just it changes us.
Yeah.
So technology actually changes us. So it's not that we're human and technology is taking us somewhere else. It works in parallel.
Right.
Right. So our culture becomes ingrained to it.
Yeah.
So I think like the major thing is that we're changing. What it is to be human is changing.
Right.
And one of my main worries is like the connected class. Right. If you have access to a smartphone, if you're part of the 1.6 billion, I think more than that now, it's close to 2 billion people that are now connected through mobile devices to each other through platforms and through the internet, right? You're almost like a different species than someone who's not, because you have access to such a knowledge, a pool of knowledge and access to information and people that you're different, right, than someone who's not. Right, like whether it
really is a privilege.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
Right, so I think I'm really interested in the idea of this, of access to the internet.
Yeah.
Being a human rights concern. Yeah. Right, it being a necessity, because like what happens next? Yeah. Right, like we're already talking about that, like how technologies can be utilized to like in a dystopian future, make the privileged class even greater, like, increase the disparity gap between like the haves and have-nots. How it can be utilized against humanity in general, right? And again, Joe Rogan talks a lot about this. We're seeing the potential emergence of two different classes of humans. The one where technology works for, and one that technology works against. Yeah. So it's like almost like an idea of like imperialism, a new type of imperialism using technology is coming apparent. And I think like the main thing about the future, especially the future of work and all this, is getting people to become utilizers of technology rather than being used by technology. Right. And the way that. And the way we do that is to get people to engage technology with a purpose. Right. Right. And one of the things I really like, I talk about it now every episode, almost every episode now, is the founder of Angel has talked about this, and it's really pushed me into that kind of mindset. Yeah. Is that technology is making us more independent. It's almost like we're reversing as a culture. Whereas 19th century, 20th century, we were all chasing to join these big companies, get a government job, like become a cog in a machine, and it'll feed us. Yeah. We have the income coming in, it's stable, you stay there for like 30, 40 years, right? You move up progressively over time, right? And it gives you insurance and all these different things. All these benefits come out of it, right? But now technology is making us more independent. It's like you have your own farm, you're in charge of hunting for yourself and your family, and gathering for your family, right? Producing for your family unit. You're becoming more independent. Technology is like reconnecting us and making us more independent. So even now when you're pursuing a career, you become like a contract worker, more likely than being an employee. You work on a per contract basis amongst yourselves. Even government workers, they work on a contract basis within multiple government agencies. They transfer month to month within the larger ecosystem, right? So that stability has gone, and it has made us more independent, right? So in such a world, like what I like is institutions and platforms and marketplaces opening up that fosters this kind of environment where technology is enabling you to hunt better, right? For resources, right? So instead of you being like a tool being utilized, technology is driving you, hey, buy this car, buy this product, buy this thing. Like it's making you into the consumer's slave. It makes you a producer, right? Like a pro consumer. You both consume and you produce. You're using this technology as a way to get your story out there, to get your influence out there, to build an audience for yourself, or to sell a product or service, or build a product or service, or get the knowledge you need, right? You're utilizing this thing for a purpose. So I think the next level of education, how education needs to change, is a way from changing people from like a consumerist culture, right, where like you're being trained to be a part of a machine, to be like, oh, how can you be independent?
Right.
I think we need to change our institutions to be like, focus on people, independent units, that we benefit from individuals pursuing creative habits, finding out what makes them unique and focusing on that. We have a multitude of people doing that, like that's worth more for us as a society.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I love it. So some key words that you said, like being consciously aware, right? When it comes to education, I have lots of thoughts on it, and not everyone may agree with it. I do agree with you. I think education has to change, right? There's more to experiential learning that we still haven't uncovered, and we've started talking about it, right? Many schools have started doing it. Ryerson, giving credit to them, like they really have built that into their core spirit, right? But every student, they process things differently. Every student, they go through life with different mindsets, right? I was never the best student. I knew I wasn't dumb.
Yeah.
But I was just like, yeah, but like I'm more curious about this.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't you tell me about this? But in the natural standardized way of education as it is right now, when you start asking these questions, you're like, oh, this kid's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Right?
Calm down, like.
Do I really have to deal with this for a whole semester, right? Yeah. But like teachers do have a very hard job. I think they are very crucial to the generation that's getting built, right? And there's some awesome teachers out there. There's some awesome institutions out there. But I also think the way we think about education should be different. I think there's a bit of innovation that needs to come to education. How do you help every single individual in their own personalized manner, right? Obviously, funding cuts don't help with this stuff, and cutting resources around this doesn't help. But when you start talking about this, when you start thinking about every person is their own individual, they have their own curiosity. If I am teaching someone, that's actually exactly what I do. When I teach, I'm trying to figure out what this person is curious about, and how can I help them get to that way of learning. Yeah. I'm not going to give you the answer, but how can I help you find the path to that answer, right? And when you bring in this like whole entrepreneurial spirit, I think like education and entrepreneurship go hand in hand, because part of, as an entrepreneur, what you're trying to do is, what's the known knowns, what's the known unknowns, like how do I figure this out, right? Who do I go and talk to? How do I do this, right? So again, that empowerment, I think as educators, as teachers, as whoever you are trying to help someone go to education, how can you empower that individual? And I think I agree with you. I think institutions need to change the way that we look at it, or the way that we approach it.
Absolutely. And one of the main things is like the process of change, right? Like we think like our institutions are not as nimble or agile as anywhere we need it to be at this point. And part of the reason is because like how much industry is the actual the private industries have influenced our public infrastructure, right? So like the modern schools were modernized, right, by like the manufacturing industry, right? When cars were becoming mass produced. So mass production was the third industrial wave. Yeah. And during the third industrial wave, when mass production and all these factory work became like possible, and like Henry Ford and like funded by Wall Street, right? The money between Wall Street and the manufacturing companies together went into education to change the schools from the old school British way of teaching to a more modernized way of being like a separating tool. Right. Your grades define where you end up in the job force. Right. people getting the A's and the B's become like the middle managers, and people who are underneath that become the workers.
Yeah.
Right? Blue collar versus white collar. And amongst them, a select few will end up going to university, will become like the top tier executives, right? Like the education became like the filtering of the wide set of people. That's when it became like institutionalized. Like everyone has to go to school, right? The highest amount of population in schools came to be, right? It became more widespread and nationalized. So just like that, I think we're right now at the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Right. The starting of the computer age, like the actual full out digital age, right? Where AI, machine learning, all these things are popping off. And with this change of progress, what I'm interested in seeing is what are the key industry leaders who are going to come together to affect this change, right? Who's going to realize that, you know what, putting some resources aside to change how education is done, how our public infrastructure is done, just like it was done the last wave, the last time around, and the time before that, right? Who are the leaders who are going to come forward and what their game plan would be, and it changes infrastructure, right? Because it all feeds into each other. If we don't have the workplace of the future, where our industry is going to suffer, right?
And you know, like when you talk about that change, right? It really starts with one simple thing. Often when we're talking about innovation, people associate it with technology, right? Frankly, innovation is mindset. You're looking at this problem in a different way and you're trying to work around it, right? You're like, I'm going to do this different and see how it works out. So when it comes to change, it is that mindset, right? How do we democratize the way that people look at change and change their mindset, right? And you can do that now because of technology. So technology is a tool that allows you to spread the information.
Yeah.
But these leaders, I'm very curious in figuring out, like, how do these leaders perceive change? And the other interesting question is, are they doing this from a moral compass? Like, do they have a moral compass built into it? Or are they trying to lead change that, you know, leads to their self-interest, right? I think there's a balance, right? So, yeah, I mean, I wonder how many leaders are actually driving that forward. When you have these conversations on a grassroots level, it always makes sense, right? But when you try to implement it on a much bigger scale, like, how do you scale this? How do you scale this?
I mean, absolutely, that's the issue, right? Like, who's going to be the galvanizing force behind this, right? Is it going to be key people within government? Most likely not. Like, the government is not necessarily meant for like widespread change, right? You need a driving force behind it, whether it be like a few industry leaders, a few corporations, or like a widespread movement. I mean, right now, I mean, I think there's a whole industry now in educational technologies, right? I think like it's like $300 to $400 million, but it's growing, because the need for it is changing. So I feel like education technology, just like legal technology, is going to become like its own industry. It's becoming its own industry. It's growing at its base, and just like it's going to change by 1,000 cuts. Right. All these small companies coming in, SaaS tools coming in, right? Coming in and enabling different features and functionalities that change education how it is. And change it. There's there's a company that we're gonna have on the podcast called Knowledge Hook. Again, Toronto-based, Scarborough-based actually company, right? And the way they do it is the founder, Travis Ratnam, he had a huge trouble with math when he was growing up. And even though he overcame his obstacles, he always stayed with them. So now he's created a platform, where Knowledge Hook, now they're actually already in like York Region schools. It's a platform to better engage with math, right? Using technology, using an application. They can learn back and forth and get feedback. And I mean, they're a pretty big company now. They're proving that success road, right? And they're hyper focused on that problem set. Then there's companies like Top Hat, companies like do coursework and things like that, right? Like all these small SaaS tools are coming up to be that are kind of solving this problem. So whether it be like a giant company or a series of giant companies funneling this, or it be these small companies coming up, either way, I think this change is happening. Right. But like one of the things I'm worried about is like the lost generation. What's going to happen to the people who are growing up into an area of technology, but are not being tooled for that. Right.
Well, I mean, you see it right now. It's very much a big issue, top of everyone's mind. Like, how will machine learning, how will artificial intelligence change the way we look at things? I see this in the legal industry quite a bit, right? People are scared. Right. But when you really think about it, every generation has gone through this, right? There are new things being put out, and people are scared. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna lose my job.
Yeah.
And some jobs will be lost, but you know, it's the way you look at it, right? Like, do I see that as an opportunity, or do I see that as, oh my God, I'm gonna do everything to like stop this, even though you can't, right? The change will happen. That's the tide of the world, right? So, you know, when it comes to lawyers, I'm often talking about, well, how do you take the lead?
Yeah.
There's so much left on the table. There's so much opportunity here. How do you take the lead and take this opportunity and run with it?
Yeah.
Right? Change the way you're looking at things. Right? Simple. If artificial machine learning is coming, artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming around, how do you kind of become an expert on it? How do you start using some of the tools that are out there so that, you know, you're
empower yourself?
Yeah, you're being a better lawyer because you're more effective, you're more efficient, but also you're bettering yourself. You're changing what you bring to the table when it comes to working with your clients, right? And think about it: 10 years down the road, this will be the norm. Your clients will be asking for you to use tools so that you could be better, right? There's just so much opportunity. Like, there's two ways of looking at it, right? There's so much opportunity that's really out there. When it comes to change, when it comes to technology, when it comes to innovation, if you just change the way you look at things, you could become one of these leaders.
Yeah.
There's one point that you brought up that I kind of disagree with in terms of governments. I think when it comes to change, it's not just one group that leads it. I see change as an entire community, right? You bring all the key players in so that it's a holistic approach to change.
Yeah.
So I actually think governments also have the opportunity to change the way that they're approaching things, change the way that they look at problems, and bring together that community, right?
Cool.
Different leaders on every spot.
Absolutely. And I should rephrase that. I mean, absolutely, the Canadian government, Ontario government, right, and even municipalities are doing a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
Are doing a lot. You know, we're opening up new centers, putting a lot of resourcing towards this.
Yeah.
And that's not what I meant at all. Like, the government is definitely doing a prolonged effort.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. The government's role is going to be holistically part of this community, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be leading it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the knowledge base is there yet.
Yeah. Different expertise, right? Like when you build out a startup, you may have sales expertise, your co-founder may have tech expertise. So again, it's that holistic approach. Push it, you know, you use that kind of startup methodology, and use that to help you push it forward.
Absolutely. I mean, any initiatives right now, like you would point out being like helpful, like what does any kind of initiatives going on government-wise, kind of funding support? Because I would imagine, like with legal tech, especially, right? Like one of the things that really got to me, like about machine learning and like what the disruption is going to have for the workforce. Yeah. One of the identifiers was the legal industry, because it was such a by the book, like so much to be digitized kind of industry, right? So I think like about 4 or 5 years ago, I started hearing about this, where it was like 90% of a first-year lawyer, second-year lawyer's job was articling, right? Going and finding references to a particular case that can be referenced to the actual case being submitted, right? Whether it be in corporate law or like criminal law, whatever it is, the most of the job was done in research. Well, when some of the first AI algorithms came up, machine learning algorithms came up, I think it was like the Microsoft's platform. Well, this system could wipe away most of that job. It could be almost fully automated away because it could do that kind of research work almost an automated fashion. So it kind of the lawyers were pointed at like the first field, really, to a giant field, to be potentially automated away. But what ended up happening over the past 5 years were like these giant firms that kind of again put up these paywalls, like we're a big firm, pay us X amount of money to get its end results. What ended up happening is because the technology allowed for greater access for smaller teams to function at a larger scale, being able to get this research done, articling, and all this kind of, and keeping their minute books and all those kind of things, right? In a lot of these large companies, the mid-tier lawyers or mid-tier professionals, and not just accounting, in the legal field, but accounting and all this stuff, right, would leave and create their own mini firm. Right? And either be a competitor or be part of the older firm, doing work that the old firm won't do or won't touch, but utilizing the credibility and utilizing the knowledge gained from working within their organization, they would go out and create the firm. So we see this like not the downfall, but almost a slow collapse of these large companies and the growth of these smaller boutique firms that kind of work in conjunction with each other, right? But also a lot of like, you know, pretty like relatively new professionals, only with 3-4 years, 5 years worth of work experience, are starting their own firms.
Right.
Right. I mean, there are so many 25-year-olds, 27-year-olds in the city who have only had like 4 to 5 years of professional experience in their professional industry. They'll go out and start their own company because they know they can, because the cost of entry is so low, and they're frustrated with the level of growth they can get in these larger firms. Like, you know what? I have this experience. I have this name recognition now. I have some client access. Let's start my own thing. So it's like technology being the great equalizer again, right? The ability to launch and run your own company has become easier. And one of the things being hit the hardest are these professional companies where traditionally they have these large paywalls.
Right. So, I mean, the parallel to that is when you look at the accounting firms, Deloitte's and KPMG's of the world, right? They saw this a while back and they're like, okay, we need to change the way that we're evolving. And they're still one of the top companies and they're growing even more, right? So they added all these different tiers onto what they could do, right? Many of these top consulting firms, they're actually building out their own, you know, legal teams to create that whole full service, right? I think here's the way to put it. I think the way we interact with professional services or just anything in the world is changing. So it's gone from the age of the provider where they had the monopoly and they could dictate the way you interact with them, to the age of the consumer where I can pick up my phone and go on Amazon and get a phone delivered to me the next day. Right? Versus before, like, this just what it was. I had to go into the shop and pick up the product that I wanted and bring it back, right? So when you think about the consumer, and this is why we're so consumer driven with the Legal Innovation Zone, how do you help the legal industry look at it that way? And how do you help them actually bridge that gap, right? How do you help all their clients find value beyond just being the best law firm out there? Because most of these law firms are very competent, and you know that's that should be the base, right? I'm hiring you not just because you're competent. I'm hiring you because you're adding X, Y, and Z as value on top. So that's some of the work that we've been doing in terms of the way we work with other organizations, but also with our technology startups, right? They are figuring out, how do I use technology as a tool to help some of these other corporates, clients, law firms become better, faster, cheaper, more accessible, whatever that unique ad that is, right? And we've only scratched the surface.
I agree.
Like, I would compare the legal industry to what the financial industry was maybe a decade ago. They've completely changed the game, right? You could go on an app and have all of your banking information and deal with all your banking information through the comfort of your home with your mobile phone, right? What is that future in law, right? How can we bridge that gap? And one of my favorite companies in law, in legal tech, Founded. So they built out a platform where if you're a small business, you can go and incorporate and deal with all of your legal contracts, all of that stuff online.
What company is that?
Founded, Founded.
Okay.
They're a Liz alumni. I absolutely love this concept because when I incorporated my company, I was like, oh crap, there's a lot of forms here, right? And yeah, you could go and do it yourself, or you could pay $1,000 and hire a lawyer to do it. In some instances, you should hire a lawyer for the more complex stuff like shareholder agreements and all that stuff. But like a simple small business, your option is either you meet your legal compliance, or you're like, this is very expensive. I'm just gonna deal with it later when I have to deal with it, right? So Founded found a way to democratize that for many of these startups and small businesses. Amazing. Right? Age of the consumer is here, and I think we all have a part to play in it. And I really think some of the top firms, some of the top leaders should be looking at that as an opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect way to end this segment, man. That wraps up exactly what like my thoughts are as well, right? Like I hope to see more of this kind of stuff. But Man, it's been an hour. Right?
Has it?
It has been. So
we were just getting started.
Yeah, we're just getting started. One of the things I'm thinking about experimenting with is like longer form of content.
Right.
Like Joe Rogan, 2-3 hours.
Right.
But this has been great. Right. Sorry to wrap it up now, but hope to have you on more in the future to talk more about what's going on in Legal Innovation Zone. And if you have any other side hustles or anything else you want to shout out, 100%, please think of us as a platform.
Yeah.
And any company that you would love to forward us on, you think it's pretty cool, we'd love to hear from them, right? Part of what we do is we work with multiple incubators, accelerators to kind of showcase new kind of cohorts they have and what's coming new in the industry. So I'd love to have some kind of work some kind of back and forth like that with Liz.
Absolutely.
And thank you, man. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.